So now for Stardust Speedway, which is a pretty fun level. It's really fast and fun, and unlike in Sonic CD, I never felt like I didn't really know where I was supposed to go. Just like is usual with Mania, the level naturally leads you in the direction you're expected to go. So that's good. For some reason when I was playing this game, I was kind of distracted by, like, my laptop to the right of the game. It turned out that I could solve that problem by just putting the game window on the right part of my computer screen. But anyways, this is really fun. Like, I love this, like, the tube section here. Like, I think it was kind of a maze sometimes in Sonic CD, but here the tube maze isn't really about getting it stuck. It's just there to be a fast section. I hate that thing. I hate that, like, the gray thing that the spike balls come out of, because it looks harmless. So it's not really guiding you to look at it. And at one point there's going to be two of them at once, although thankfully it's not like they come out of the gray blocks at a cheap timing, so you won't be able to avoid either of them. I love the Donkey Kong Country ripoff spring things. Like, it's really fun, actually. I never really played the Donkey Kong Country games. Like, I played a little bit into the first few levels of each and got stuck. I didn't really take that as a good sign. Oh look, it's the Blue Spears minigame! I heard that they reused the same special stages from the original game, and they also put in more that were original. I get a gray medallion from beating this, and the annoying thing is it doesn't actually tell me what it does or what it unlocks. You get gold medallions from collecting all the rings to get a perfect. It's not very clear. Is it the gold medallions that unlock stuff and the silver medallions are worthless? If so, why would they give you silver medallions instead of just telling you that you didn't accomplish anything and you failed? I just kind of feel like these special stages are really pointless because they're not actual special stages. They don't actually give you anything. Like, they don't give you Chaos Emerald or anything. Maybe it would be nice if I could make it so that they were the ones that gave me the Chaos Emeralds, because I can beat these. You're gonna see a special stage, I know that for sure. In fact, you're gonna see one in Act 2, but I'm not gonna be able to beat it, unfortunately. I really like these platforms. I don't know, like the spikes at each end of them, they kind of help with the challenge. That and they're tiny, but they're not really hard to land on or anything. But yeah, this is a great level. I love the music of this place. It's all smooth and suave. And I like the aesthetic too. Again, I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to be. I mean, I'm seeing vines all over the place, but I guess that's the thing about classic Sonic is, and 2D Sonic in general, I guess, is that you don't really need to clearly tell what a stage is. Like, it can be as surreal and obviously gamey as it wants. Those chopper things, like, it didn't look like they were enemies, so why did they bother making them look so menacing if I was clearly touching them and they didn't hurt me? Well, what was the point of that? It seems like misleading graphical design. So there was a mock infomercial of this game. I never really saw any commercials for this. The mock infomercial video of the collector's edition of this game is a reference to an apparently humorous TV infomercial for a Sonic 2 console bundle that debuted in 1993. The fake suggested price tag of $6,000 in the infomercial references a North American release date for Sonic 1. But yeah, I like this boss, cause like the Act 1 bosses in general seem to be pretty easy. I really don't think they should have had Act 1 bosses at all. It just drags things out. But this one's pretty easy. Like, all you have to do is jump into the fireflies, and there you go. Like the fireflies, sometimes two of them will show up and create a horizontal laser, and you just have to jump into one of them. So, and then the laser disappears. And it's not bullshit when they're shooting downwards, because there's not multiple of them, so you're not completely overwhelmed, and you're not trapped in a tight, small space. so it's not really a problem at all. You can just wait until he's low enough for you to attack him, and there you go. And it's not even hard to damage the main boss either. And obviously there aren't really that many transitions in this game, but this zone transitions to the future, which is why the aesthetic changes, which is a nice touch. It kind of took a little too long though. There's a reason I would always skip that cutscene in Stardrocity. But yeah, this is the special stage of this game. At first I was thinking, oh, this is pretty fun. Like, all you have to do is navigate yourself into the blue spheres, and that causes you to go faster. You go more fast as you progress through the special stage, just like in the blue sphere minigame. Maybe the rings function as a time limit, like in Knuckles Chaotix. Unfortunately, it's kind of easy to lose control of yourself, your time's a little slippery, but then this happened. I'm not really sure how I got a game over in the... how did I get a time over in the first place? It didn't look like there was a time limit on the footage I'm seeing. So that alone turned me against the whole concept of the special stage, even though it looks like it has the potential to be the best one in the classic Sonic games. But in Sonic CD, they pretty clearly showed the time limit and told you that you were running low on time when you were standing in the water and stuff. Like, it was clear that you weren't supposed to stand in the water because that decreased your time. It wasn't really clear. Yeah, these are the spike balls that are right beside each other that I was complaining about. But yeah, I just don't understand how I got a time over there. I'll probably just not really bother with the special stages at all. But yeah, something that's really charming about this level is that they introduce rush gimmicks. Like, they don't just pull from the classic Sonic games. They have the vine gimmick where you run off the edge and a vine grabs you and launches you up all satisfying like. And it has the rocket gimmick. And it doesn't feel like it controls really stiffly like in Colors DS, because you can actually tilt it by holding right. And it controls pretty well. It's like pointless set pieces like that. Like, they're totally pointless, you could have just had a spring, but it's fun and exciting because it's just something totally new. That's a pretty cheaply, annoyingly placed enemy there. Like, of course it's going to bother you. And that was incredibly cheap. Like, of course I ended up landing on that because there's such a tiny platform. But then we get this, which is actually pretty fun. Yeah, like, I really appreciate the fact that they had both aesthetics for Stardust Speedway. Like, they had the vine past area, and they have the part of it that looks like a bunch of tubas. I never really got Stardust Speedway looking like a bunch of tubas, though. I mean, I always pictured it to be more like its bad future incarnation. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't really make much sense. It's a tuba. I mean, Music Plant, it's clearly themed around music. But yeah, I wasn't too happy coming into this boss fight. Especially since I was clearly in ball form and he hit me anyways. Like, his attacks are definitely harder to avoid than in the original CD boss fight. And you still have the upward slopes that if you run up to them not at high speed, or if you... See, that dash pad should not be able to send you in the wrong direction. That's not how dash pads usually work. Dash pads are usually programmed to send you in a specific direction. But here, if you go towards that dash pad, it sends you left, and that annoys you. I hate the way the dash pads look in this level because they don't look like dash pads at all. They don't draw your attention to them. But yeah, this is an unintuitive part of the boss fight, but fortunately I already heard about it when I got here. I just completely forgot what the strategy was supposed to be for getting him to bounce back at Metal Sonic. I love that he's in here, like the Game Gear version of Silver Sonic. Like, it's so nice that they reference the Game Gear games. They're just as important a part of the classic Sonic history as, not just as important, but still pretty important. But yeah, just spin dash jump into him. spin dash jump into him when he's in ball form, and you'll be fine. The annoying thing is you still have to avoid energy balls, and if you jump into him when he's not in ball form, you'll destroy him, and it kind of feels cheap that, well, not bad cheap, but like cheap in the reference sense, that he gets destroyed, and then another one shows up. Like okay, like it's sweet that they care enough to reference the Game Gear game, but they just have they just have an infinite amount of Silver Sonics instead of bringing back the Silver Sonic, and it just keeps being him for the entire fight. But yeah, that seems like it's pretty fun once you know what to do. I didn't have too much of a problem with it because I figured it out on my own, thankfully, and I had vague memories of learning about it anyways. It's creative, but a lot of creative bosses in this game also happen to be very unintuitive because, go figure, Sonic games, and classic Sonic games especially, never really had creative boss fights for kind of a reason. It kept things simple. The races don't have the spikes that really ruined Sonic CD's race. And see, I keep trying to attack him, but nothing happens. It's really irritating, since you attack him normally by jumping into him. But yeah, thankfully the racetracks don't have spikes on them, constantly ruining your momentum and stuff. So that alone makes the racetracks not nearly as irritating as in Sonic CD. That and they have dash pads occasionally. But then we get to this section where they bring back the spiked wall from Sonic Blast, and the problem is you have to slow yourself down to try to jump into Metal Sonic, and look, I jumped into there and it sent me back into the spikes. I mean, thank God that your rings will get stopped by the spike wall, and so you can just collect them and it's fine. But see, then you just get flown to the left, just because I was moving a teensy bit to the left to try to adjust my position and land on him. I don't like running bosses in Sonic in general, and that's probably why. The physics are just, you get flung so far to the left just because you tapped it a little bit. It wasn't a fun boss, it was pretty tense, but thankfully I didn't die. That's the important thing. Oh, the super peel out is great. Even though the super peel out, that's great, even though I have a spin dash, so it's kind of pointless. Like, oh look, a spin dash that leaves me vulnerable. That's great. There's so many different cranes here. It's kind of, I mean, it's good that they have the crane that you can actually interact with to good effect being green, but I don't see the point of having so many different cranes in the background when only one crane you're supposed to pull. It seems misleading visually. But yeah, this is a great level with great remixes. Like, it's kind of surprising that they decided to make it more of a water level, but it actually manages to make the water regions fun. And even drowning wasn't really a problem for me, because they always tended to have, like, air bubbles right there where I needed them. They didn't really have any, I mean, maybe I just didn't find bubble shields. But one of the things that was pretty fun about Sonic 3 was finding bubble shields, and now the water areas are a joke. Well, they still have challenge, but you don't have to drown anymore. Like, I was kind of dreading those grab onto them things, but fortunately they worked just fine and I didn't fall off them. It's kind of nice having this little boat set piece. I just wish it moved faster, but considering you're trapped inside of a camera, I can't see anything that's ahead of you. It's better for it to not move too fast. How did I get hit there anyways? I mean, I was clearly ducking. I guess I was supposed to be moving left and right to dodge it. It just seemed, it was frustrating to me. Yeah, this is a pretty fun level. The pre-order trailer and opening animation of this game are animated like the opening of Sonic CD, which is good. It's classic Sonic-like, so it really should be that way, if anything. The idea for the trailer scenes was by Aaron Weber from the Sonic Twitter page. It's kind of surprising that he had like that much influence. It's also surprising that they thought it was a good idea to have the spikes have so many of them when you have to get to the spring. Like, see, I landed twice in those. But yeah, something I really love about the stage is that they bring back the bubble gimmick from Sonic 2 for the Master System, and Sonic Chaos or Triple Trouble. I always confuse those two games for some reason, even though they're kind of nothing alike. Well, they have the spin dash in common, but Triple Trouble is more fleshed out of a game. But yeah, I'm really glad that they brought back that bubble gimmick. Like, you're trapped in a bubble and you get to move around. And it's the later bubble version, so it's not constantly annoyingly popping just because you tapped a wall. That would have been really irritating. Well, it's not to say it was horrible in concept, it was a challenge, but like, that would have been pretty annoying. So instead, you get to move along the walls all that you want. The only thing that's different is that there's a bit of a time limit on it that I only ran into once, and when I did, I was like, why is there a time limit on these things all of a sudden? And they're actually going to spice it up, the trapped in a bubble thing, which I was really surprised by. I thought it would just be you get trapped in it and then you get to progress. But it turns out they're actually these fans that move you around. And you have to, there's still a challenge of course, is you have to avoid the enemies and spikes that will pop your bubble and probably force you to backtrack. Again, like this boat, it shows up so many times, and it's so slow. At least the sections are short. Like, at least not a really boring auto-scrolling area. Like, instead it's just part of what makes the zone feel more memorable. But unfortunately, this level, of course, still has the same kind of annoying badniks that the original level had. It has the really long shark enemies that are pretty easy to hit you because they're so long and they pop out of nowhere. So you just gotta make sure that you keep on jumping and being in ball form. And that thing, usually the thing that comes out of it will hit you. I managed to get lucky in the recording though. And thank God, the projectiles actually don't hit you when you're in the bubble. Instead, they get deflected like the bubble shield was meant to do with projectiles. I think they changed it so that it does do that in Sonic Mania, which is good. Also, I forgot to mention that you can actually set stuff on fire in Green Hill Zone with the fire shield, which is really cool. Like, I love that they added some sort of extra effect to the landscape with the elemental shields. But yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, the fans will move you along. It's kind of makes it feel automated though, like you're not really doing much. But again, like, it's a memorable, charming set piece. Like, this game is definitely about going fast and having exciting, memorable set pieces, rather than so much just being about platforming like Sonic 1. Both are good, but I could understand if people will complain that it's too focused on action and not enough on actual doing stuff. At first I thought, you know, like, this is like the end of Labyrinth Zone. Like, this is pretty fun. It's obviously easier, but it was fun, like, avoiding the obstacles. Why were the spikes so much of them? Like, why were there so much of them that it was so hard to avoid? And the slope there was pretty annoying. Like, you always have to end up stopping and spin dashing up them. Now, this boss has a cool and creative concept. Like, you land in the Eggmobile as Sonic, and you get to attack him with it. But the problem is, it's not at all intuitive what you're supposed to do. You see, Eggman drops a bunch of bombs. So naturally, I assumed that you had to attack him with his own bombs. Eventually, I pressed down on the control pad of all things, and that taught me that I could drop these gray things. But they just drop. Like, sometimes they seem to damage him, but most of the time they just make a silly sound and not really do anything. I thought they were bombs of my own. That would have been more interesting. But instead, it turns out... See, the thing is that when I started out this boss, I was mashing the A button, not being sure what to do, and it turned out I had to hold A, and that would create a water spurt that would suck him up into it. But it turns out that you have to suck him up into the water spurt, and that's how you damage him. What really threw me off and confused me was that if you suck up the bombs, they hurt you, and I'm not really sure how you're supposed to get your rings back. Like, that seems like a pretty glaring oversight, though the boss is so pathetically easy if you actually know what to do, that doesn't really matter. But the problem is, I assumed, naturally, that Eggman would give you contact damage like every other enemy in the game. All because the bomb that was in the water spurt at the same time as him damaged me. So as a result, I had no idea that sucking him up into the water spurt into Sonic would somehow hurt him. I thought that I just had to damage him with its own bombs. So I absolutely hated this boss when I first played it. I'm sure it would be more fun now that I know what to do, but I absolutely hated it when I first played it.